everybody, and welcome again today to another WinPure's weekly webinar. My name is Ben Cutler, and I'm one of our solution specialists here at WinPure. Quick introduction here, just kind of a reminder, we're hosting these webinars each week, typically geared towards product training or product introduction, usually covering very specific topics. We are going to start hosting some webinars looking at very specific use cases or hot topics like master data management, ETL, systems implementations, things like that. So please stay tuned and join us when you can, or keep your eyes out for the recordings if you can't join us live. This week we're looking at automation. So the automation utility in the Clean and Match Enterprise Edition. So today is creating an automated data quality process. Now, quick note here is that everyone in the call is muted, but you can ask questions via the question box on the GoToWebinar control panel. I'll usually try to start taking those questions at about the 15-minute mark, but feel free to submit your questions along the way. I do want to emphasize, we appreciate feedback, questions, suggestions. So please, feel free to reach out. This webinar is going to be recorded. I will send a link to the recording and a link to my online calendar if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one or a group demo with me. Again, if you have any questions or feedback, we also, we'd love to hear from you if you have any, suggestions on future topics. If you have any interest in participating in a webinar as a guest speaker, please let us know. I'd be glad to hear from you. So let's go ahead and jump right into today's topic, creating an automated data quality process. And this should piggyback on other webinars quite nicely, right? In other webinars we've looked at, importing data, data profiling, data cleansing and standardization, data matching, creating projects, and using those projects as templates, creating clean matrix templates to do some, cleansing and standardization between, different data sources and things like that. So, today with all of that knowledge, we're going to look at taking that next step to automating some of this work. But, keep in mind, all data operations, data processes, are going to be different sources, different use cases, different business requirements, things like that, different target systems. So a variety of different requirements at the end of the day, and a variety of different scenarios. So today we're going to be looking at really more of an introduction of the automation utility and not talking so much around the processes. Again, if you have specific questions about processes, feel free to reach out and we can take that conversation offline. So let's go ahead and start with the two primary automation components, which are the configuration and the scheduler. We'll see this in a few minutes looking at the demo. So each of those two primary components also reference a few other components, right, or include a few other components. So the configuration on the left, that's where we're going to start once we have a project that we've created, and once we go to start automating that data quality process. We're going to start with the first step, which is configuration. We're going to give that configuration a name. We're going to reference a project. If we need to do any cleansing or standardization, we're going to reference a clean matrix template or a variety of clean matrix templates. The match definitions are also referenced as part of the project that we've created. And then, as part of the automation configuration here, we're going to go ahead and set up what type of export settings we might require there. Once we've created a set of configurations there referencing, those other, processes and templates, then we're going to go ahead and schedule that configuration. We're going to give that schedule a name, a start date and time, a status, and a scheduling type. But let's go ahead and look at this a bit more in detail. So again, we're looking at the first step, which is configuration. we're going to give it a name, right? We might create multiple configurations with the same project, but with different clean matrices, for example, or multiple configurations referencing the same project, but with different export settings, for example, right? So again, you might think of this kind of as a hierarchy, a group of templates and components and settings associated with data sources, right? Cleansing settings, match settings, and export settings. So we're going to give it a name. We are going to add a project, a clean and match project, or reference a project. That project, again, has a few different components. The project has a name. That project is associated with one or more data sources. And if you've set up the project and you're going to do some matching, you've already configured those match settings, right? Different algorithms, different match levels, groupings, conditions, using our knowledge-based library. Maybe you've even created some of your own knowledge-based libraries, how you're going to handle null spaces and things like that, or null values, right? So all of those settings are referenced as part of the project. Next step is going to be adding your clean matrix templates, right? These are, again, your cleansing and standardization settings. And you can apply multiple clean matrix templates source by source, right? So we'll look at this in the demonstration. And then again, export settings. Keep in mind, we can export from the clean step, right? So you can go source by source and export from the clean step. Not all use cases are going to require any kind of matching or deduplication. So many use cases will just need to clean and standardize the data. And so you will have the option to simply export the clean data and do no matching. For those that are going to be doing some matching, you will have those post-matching exports available to you, just like you see in the software. So you've got a variety of different kind of views or filtered sets of data that you can reference as part of these settings. The scheduler is pretty simple. Again, we're going to start by giving it a name, and we're referencing a very specific set of configuration settings, right? At the last step here, what we just set up. So we're gonna give it a name, and we're gonna reference what we just set up at the previous step there. We're gonna give it a start date and time. We can, by default, it's gonna be active. We can mark it as inactive, at any point in time. And we're going to choose a scheduling type, which is going to be once or recurring, right? So we're going to see all of this in the demonstration. But again, just, kind of having a bit more information about this, written, visual, could be helpful in better understanding how you can potentially use the out-of-the-box automation utility to help automate your data quality processes. Now, last slide here before we jump into the demonstration today. When we talk about data quality, data cleansing, data matching, master data management, automation, there are two different types of conversations that we could be having. One is the out-of-the-box automation utility, which we're going to look at today. The other is going to be the API. So Clean and Match Enterprise does have an API, right? And each has kind of its own pros and cons, and just a short list of some of that here. The out-of-the-box automation utility, it's out of the box, so pros are going to be the speed and simplicity. But again, keep in mind that there might be some limitations, especially when compared to how you could potentially implement the API. And again, keep in mind that we are talking about scheduled automation, right? Whereas the API may require some development depending on your use case and how you choose to implement that API. We do have a trial version of the API available. We do have an out-of-the-box, a very simple API example that you can actually do some testing with. But again, keep in mind it's a custom solution, so the example might not be exactly what you're looking for, and you may decide to implement this in a variety of different ways. But the API is it's going to expose all functionality for programmatic use. It's also going to give you more of an end-to-end real-time automation type of solution. And then again, complete flexibility with the API. So that's a quick look at some of the some of the details, some of the context around how to automate your data quality processes and how we can help you with that. Let's go ahead and switch gears for just a minute here, and let's jump over to the demonstration before we get into questions. Great. So everyone should see on your screen here the Clean and Match Enterprise software. So again, keep in mind the automation is available in the Clean and Match Enterprise Desktop Edition or the Clean and Match Enterprise Server Edition. Let me just go ahead and open this up here. So again, on previous webinars, we've looked at how to import data, how to profile data, and how to use profiling, data quality profiling, to look at the structure and the content of the data to help us to make data-driven decisions about how to cleanse and standardize the data. Also how to get better match results, right? We've looked at match configurations and simple matching with just a single table, or matching within and across multiple data sources and things like that. We've looked at different export options. We've looked at creating a projects and using that as a template. We've looked at clean matrix templates and how to use that between different data sets. So today we're kind of bringing all of that knowledge together and looking at how we can then use that to potentially automate our data quality processes. So pretty straightforward here. Should be a quick demonstration. In the upper left here, I have automation configuration, which is our configuration panel. That's what we're looking at now. And I do have our automation log, right? So the processing log. And keep in mind, if you have that Enterprise Edition, you're going to see the automation utility down here on the lower left. So if you want to navigate to where we are now, you're going to click on automation, and then again, you can set everything up on the configuration tab here. On my screen here, you can see up top is that first step, the configuration, and then down below is that second step, the scheduler, right? So we have these add, remove, and edit buttons, right? So if I'm starting from scratch, I'm just going to add a new configuration. Once I've added some configurations and once I've added some different scheduled activities, I can then go back and edit those activities or simply remove them, right? So again, this should be pretty straightforward. We're going to use our wizard here. It's essentially a 4 or 5 step process depending on everything that you need to do. So again, we're going to start by giving this a name. I'm just going to say automation webinar. I'm going to select a project path. So again, I'm referencing an existing project. So I'm going to go back to my folder from last week, and I'm just going to select that project that we created. So I've done that now, very simple. Next step here is to set up the cleansing and standardization activities. So again, what we're doing here is we're referencing clean matrix templates that we've saved, for other projects, and we're going to reference them source by source. So you can see here, and then we're going to add them as activities. You can see here I can go source by source. We're going to start with the master, and then I'm going to add the clean matrix. So I'm going to use the one that we set up last week, and then I'm going to add this as one of the cleansing and standardization activities, right? So pretty straightforward. And then again, if I want to go back and do the same thing for the weekly, use the same matrix, very quick and very simple to do that. If I have some additional clean matrix templates that I also want to apply to these same data sets, I can do that, right? So again, this is going to support multiples, right? So very quick and very simple. I'm going to take that next step here. And again, we do have the option to export the clean results, right? So after completing the process of cleaning the data, referencing those clean matrix templates, I can go ahead and allow for an export there. So again, it's very quick and simple. I'm going to stick to a single example here. I'm just going to say the master to Excel. I'm going to choose a location and essentially create a table here. I'm going to do that in our automation folder. So I'm going to say automation, webinar, export, clean master, right? I'm going to save it there and execute. That job has been added down below, and I'm ready to go. Again, if I want to run the same process with other data sources, I can do that. I'm going to go quite a bit of flexibility here. I'm going to go ahead and click next. Do I want to run matching? So again, that's optional. If you do want to run matching, again, you're going to want to set up those match configurations as part of the project, which columns, which conditions, grouping, algorithms, levels, knowledge base library, all of those different components there. I'm going to go ahead and say yes, let's run matching. And then again, what we're going to do here is just going to set up that export configuration here. So just like you see in the software, when you're on the results tab, once you've run through the project and you have some results, you've got some different views, some different subsets of data, right? Different filtered views of data to work with. That's what you're going to see in the first option here. So you can simply select all data or only groups or across tables. So all of those views are going to be found here as well, right? And then again, you're going to set this up to export to CSV, Excel, other other data sources, target systems, for example. Let's run a simple example here. All data to Excel. Add. Again, I'm going to run through that that same process. So I'm going to say automation webinar export all match results, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and save that and execute. Now again, very flexible. So I might want all data to go to one location, and I may want only groups to go to another location, right? So quite a bit of flexibility there. And then again, keep in mind that I'm setting this first set of configuration up referencing a very specific project, which references very specific sources, and then I'm able to go kind of ad hoc. I can add those clean matrix templates and the export settings. But again, I can create multiple configurations here to do different things, right? So again, what you decide to do there is going to be up to you. I'm going to click on next, and I'm done with the configuration piece here, right? So I've created that. I'm going to move on to the next step. So I want to select up top. I'm going to do add. That's going to reference this set of configurations. I'm going to say automation webinar weekly, right? And I'm going to give you another example here. So again, I can do start date and start time. I'm just going to leave it as is. I might adjust the hour here and continue working. I'm going to leave it as active, and I'm going to go with weekly. And then again, I can set this up based on the type of scheduling that I need, right? So you can see here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? So very, very quick and simple. Again, looking at how we might be able to set this up in different ways, thinking about different use cases, I might also add again and say, look, I've done my weekly. Now I want to do the same thing with the same data sources, referencing the same project and the same clean matrix and the same, everything that we did in the configuration there. But now I want to set it up on a monthly. So I'm going to do it weekly, and I'm also going to do it monthly. And for monthly, I'm just going to put it on the 29th day, for example. And very quickly and easily, you can see our weekly and our monthly. Again, if I come back weeks later and decide I really don't need that monthly, I can go ahead and remove that. Or I can come back in and make changes with the edit, right? So pretty straightforward stuff here. Again, if you're pretty familiar and comfortable and confident creating and working with projects, this next step of automating those projects should be pretty straightforward to you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here, looking at the time, and I'm going to open it up to questions. I think the demonstration ran just a little bit longer than I would have liked here, but let's go ahead and open it up to questions. See what kind of questions are coming in. Again, feel free to submit those. If there are any questions that I can't get to on the live webinar here, feel free just to respond to my email. Just shoot me the question right back. Happy to answer those questions for you. Let me go ahead and take a look at what we have coming in here. Great. So the first question, does the Clean and Match software need to be open for the automation to run? Thanks for the question. No, it does not need to be open. Of course, Wherever the software is installed, be it a desktop, laptop, server, of course, that machine needs to be running and able to run those processes. But that you can close out the software. So once you've set this up, go ahead and save, and feel free to close out the software. So good question. Thanks for your question there. See what else we have coming in here. Great. Next question. Is there any special training required? No, there really isn't. Thanks for the question. So I think for most people, a 15-minute introduction like this is really going to suffice. You might have some, use cases that, really require more of a look at the process, and we might want to have a better discussion. Feel free to contact me. We can have a discussion offline. But no, I mean, the automation itself shouldn't require any special training. The software, creating and working with projects, again, that typically requires, or at least we recommend an hour or two of assisted training or learning, followed by, another few hours of independent learning. Just to feel, completely, comfortable and confident with the software. We're, creating and working with projects. But if you're already creating and working with projects, the automation should be real straightforward for you. Thanks again for the question. Let's look at the next question here. How do we know if there were any issues during the automation? Thanks for the question. Yeah, so you see up top here again, when you're on the automation tab in the upper left here, we're looking at the configuration where we're going to configure everything, but you also have the log here. So this is going to reference the configuration name, the schedule name, tell you whether or not it was successful, last run, duration, and if there was kind of any issue during processing, you'll have that type of log here in terms of whatever issue you might have run into. Maybe the data source was unavailable or something along those lines. That information can be found right here under the logs. So thanks for the question. Next question here. Are there any limits or data limits on automation? Thanks for your question. Really appreciate it. So again, you can view and compare clean and match versions on the website. So winpure.com, products, view and compare versions. There you can kind of view. We do have some, small business editions that do have limitations on the number of records or the number of tables per project. The enterprise desktop and the enterprise server editions don't have any kind of imposed limitations when it comes to the number of records or the number of columns or the number of sources or anything like that. So there aren't any limitations when it comes to the automation. Those enterprise editions are going to be where you're going to find the automation utilities. So no imposed limitations that way. Good question, and thanks for submitting that. Again, if anyone wants to discuss any of this in more detail, if you have any questions, feel free to submit those live. But again, just want to emphasize here, feel free to reach out. I'm a phone call or an email away. I'm happy to have that conversation if you have any kind of questions. See if we have any other questions coming in here. If not, we can go ahead and wrap up a little bit early and give you all some time back to your day here. I have no problem with that at all. Yep, I'm not seeing any other questions here. So why don't we just leave it at that for today? Hopefully this was really useful. Again, thank you all for joining. Thank you for your interest. Please get in touch if you have your questions, suggestions for future topics. Again, if you have any interest in participating as a guest speaker to discuss a very specific topic, if you have any ideas, feel free to reach out. I'd be glad to hear from you. But thank you again for joining, everyone. Appreciate your time, and hope you have a great rest of the week. Take good care.